Today's lesson is the myth of Diarmuid's betrayal. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're going to continue summarizing our traditional tale from Ireland. It's a myth all about Diarmuid's betrayal. And this indeed is a story about Diarmuid. And where we left off, Diarmuid caught Gronya's attention. And of course, as you remember, Gronya was supposed to marry Fionn, but she didn't like what she saw when she arrived at an engagement feast. She thought, this guy's past his prime. He's a bit too old and gray. I'm not interested. I'd rather have that hunk sitting down there at the banquet table, that guy by the name of Diarmuid.
That's right. So Gronya wasn't able to do what she wanted, marry whom she wanted, so she had to rely on some tricks, some magic. So what she did was, before casting a spell on Diarmuid, she put some medicine, some drugs in the wine that all of the warriors were drinking, and this drug made them all fall asleep.
Right, and of course she did not give the drug to Diarmuid, and with all of them sleeping, she said, okay, here I am, boy, let's run off together. And he said, well, you're actually pretty interesting, I like your personality and stuff like that, but I gotta be loyal to my leader. I can't do it. So she had another trick up her sleeve. She actually cast a spell on him, and if somebody has that kind of magic power, you are going to be under their control. So basically what happened is he followed her off into the night, and I guess at that point they were going to be together forever. But the story's not over yet. Let's find out what happens now by listening to the first part, and then we'll come back to talk about it.
When the warriors awoke, Fionn was furious and led his band in pursuit of the couple. They weren't easy to find, traveling fast by day under the protection of all manner of magical beings and hiding in hollows, caves, and trees by night. It took years for Fionn and his men to finally close in.
大家好，第一部分我们可以看到单字 furious， 这个字是形容词，指的是暴怒的或是怒不可遏的、激烈的。例如Eva was furious because her boyfriend told her to lose weight. Eva 因为男朋友叫她减肥而发怒。或者 Amy's constant lies made Rex furious and he finally broke up with her. Amy 不断的说谎让 Rex 很生气，所以他最后终于和她分手了。接着我们看到名词 pursuit， 它的意思是追赶、追捕或是追求。举例来说 The police gave up their pursuit when the thief left the country. 当那个小偷离开该国时，警方放弃了追捕。又或者说 They traveled to a distant country in pursuit of a better life. 他们去了一个很远的国家，以追求更好的生活。另外补充它的动词 pursue, P-U-R-S-U-E, pursue. 例如 Omar wants to pursue a career in medicine. Omar 想从事医学事业。或是 The NBA team has been pursuing a trophy for years. 那支 NBA 球队多年来一直在追求一座奖杯。再来我们看到片语 all manner of， 意思是各式各样的点点点或是形形色色的。例如 You can find all manner of snacks when you visit a night market in Taiwan. 你逛台湾夜市时可以找到各式各样的小吃。或是 The school teaches all manner of dance, from ballet and jazz to more modern forms. 这所学校教授各式舞蹈，从芭蕾、爵士到较现代的舞步都有。第一部分最后我们看到片语 close in， 它指的是逼近或是包围。例如 With the police closing in, the criminals knew they would soon be caught. 受警方包围时，罪犯们知道自己很快就会被逮捕。或者我们可以说 The lions closed in around the water buffalo, and they soon brought it down and killed it. 狮群渐渐逼近，把水牛围住，很快便把它撂倒咬死。
So in the last part, we saw that all of the warriors had fallen asleep because of the drug that Grania had put in the wine. When the warriors awoke, Fionn was furious and led his band in pursuit of the couple. So finally, the drug wore off and the warriors woke up. And when Fionn woke up, he was furious. Furious means very angry, not just a little bit angry, slightly angry, but very angry. When you're very angry, you're furious. For instance, I could say that my mother was furious when she discovered that I had lied to her. In this case, Fionn was furious because he discovered that Grania had left and so had Diarmuid, and he put 2 and 2 together and realized that the couple had run away. And so he led his band of warriors in pursuit of the couple.
Right. Pursuit here just refers to when you follow someone, and usually it means you're kind of trying to catch them, to do harm to them, or to bring them to justice, or whatever. The pursuit of the police after the criminal, for example. And the verb is to pursue. But here we've got the whole phrase in pursuit of. Okay, so basically they're following the couple. They're following Diarmuid and Grania, and they weren't easy to find, okay? These are young people running pretty fast, and he's kind of an older fella, and he just can't keep up with them, so they weren't easy to find. They were difficult to pursue. They were traveling fast by day under the protection of all manner of magical beings and hiding in hollows, caves, and trees by night. So that's how they kept away from Fionn and his band of soldiers. First of all, they traveled by day. They traveled during the day, and then they were being protected by all sorts of magical beings. So here, all manner of just means all kinds of or lots of magical creatures that probably knew Grania and offered to help her. And then they hid in various places at night or by night.
Right, so Grania and Diarmuid would not have been able to get away by themselves. They had a lot of help. First, they were protected by all manner of magical beings. All manner here means a great variety of, a lot of something. And I could say also, as an example, the hotel has all manner of activities for children. So it just means a lot. And in this case, Grania and Diarmuid were helped by Giant, for instance, who brought them in his hands across vast lands. And they also hid in hollows. So hollows are places that may be carved inside trees, or holes in trees, holes in mountains, so that when they're inside, nobody can find them. And they traveled both by day and by night. So it was a lot of effort to get away from the warriors.
Right, from Fionn and his band of warriors. And unfortunately, though, it took years for Fionn and his men to finally close in. And here we've got the verb phrase to close in. It just means you get closer to the thing you are pursuing. There's a criminal operating in this area. The police have not caught him yet, but they've got some information and they're closing in. They're getting closer to finding the criminal and arresting him.
And that's it for this part. Now let's listen to the second part.
Grania and Diarmuid were crossing a heath when the Fianna caught sight of them. But as they approached, a wild boar leapt from the scrub and viciously attacked Diarmuid, leaving him with deadly wounds. Fionn's men, who still thought fondly of Diarmuid, demanded that Fionn do something to save him.
第二部分我们看到片语 catch sight of， 意思是瞥见或是突然看见点点点。我们可以说 We caught sight of a movie star in the bar. 我们在酒吧看到一位电影明星。又或者说 Earl caught sight of his math teacher in the crowd. Earl 在人群中瞥见他的数学老师。最后我们看到副词 viciously， 它指的是凶残的、残暴的、恶毒的或是不怀好意的。举例来说Karen's dog has viciously bitten several people in the neighborhood. Karen 的狗已经凶残地咬了许多附近的人。再举一个例子 The murderer killed his cousin viciously. 那位凶手凶残地杀了他的表亲。 另外这个字的字尾去掉 ly 就变成了形容词 vicious， 意思是邪恶的或是恶意的。我们可以说 Oliver was the victim of a vicious assault. Oliver 是一起恶意攻击的受害者。也可以说 Jeff was bitten on the scalp by a vicious squirrel. Jeff 的头皮被一只凶恶的松鼠咬了。
Okay, so we've got Fionn and his band of warriors. They are in pursuit of the couple here. But, of course, they had to search for them for a long, long time. And that's because the couple were traveling by day and they were hiding at night. So, of course, it was very difficult to find them. And here in the second part of our lesson, it says, Grania and Diarmuid were crossing a heath when the Fianna caught sight of them, but as they approached, a wild boar leapt from the scrub and viciously attacked Diarmuid, leaving him with deadly wounds. So a lot of things just happened there. Remember, we've got the couple running away, Grania and Diarmuid, and they were crossing a heath. A heath is like an open field with wild plants and grasses growing there. And in this particular case, the word heath is usually used to describe places like that in England and the United Kingdom. We don't really use that so much in American English, but this story is taking place in Ireland, which will use the same word. And yes, they were crossing a heath, kind of an open grassland. And then Fianna caught sight of them, or the Fianna, which is that band of warriors led by Fionn, and they saw them. If you catch sight of someone or something, that means you see them, and it was kind of difficult to do so, especially if you're chasing after somebody. You catch sight of someone, and you go, oh, I see them. There they are.
Right, so I could also say, for instance, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror as I got up. So to catch sight of means to see suddenly. So as Grania and Diarmuid were crossing the heath, this wide area of land with rough grass and bushes growing, they were spotted by the Fianna. So when the Fianna approached Grania and Diarmuid, a wild boar leapt from the scrub and viciously attacked Diarmuid, leaving him with deadly wounds. So what happened was, as the Fianna approached Grania and Diarmuid, an animal leaped out from the scrub. So what kind of animal was this? It was a wild boar. A boar is basically a wild pig. It's much bigger and it's more violent and it's usually darker in color and has sharp teeth, and boar attacks can be deadly. So they were approached by a wild boar that leapt from the scrub. A scrub is a small bush, especially in dry areas. So this boar leapt from a scrub or a bush and viciously attacked Diarmuid. So viciously here refers to the way that something is done. It's done very violently. He didn't just attack Diarmuid. He attacked Diarmuid very violently. You can also say that somebody was viciously killed in a very violent way. So this wild boar left Diarmuid with deadly wounds. Diarmuid was wounded so badly that he could die or almost died.
Indeed. So again, we've got a wild boar, a wild pig, and it leapt from the scrub. You could also say leaped. Leapt and leaped are acceptable past tense forms and past participle forms of the verb to leap or to jump. So again, the wild pig, the wild boar, jumped out from the scrub and violently, viciously attacked Diarmuid, and he was wounded. He was left with deadly wounds, which might have killed him had he not sought medical attention. And Fionn's men, who still thought fondly of Diarmuid, demanded that Fionn do something to save him. So again, we've got Fionn, who's probably pretty angry at Diarmuid for running off with his fiancée. So, of course, you could perfectly understand why Fionn would be unwilling to treat Diarmuid. He probably wants him to just die right there and suffer suffer in great pain, but we still got these soldiers who are called the Fianna, and they had worked with Diarmuid before. Remember, Diarmuid used to be a member of that band of warriors, so they know him and they've spent time with him, and they are fond of him. They have respect for him. He's their great friend. So, of course, they thought fondly of him. So if you think fondly of someone, that means you really like that person, you really respect them, and you're good friends with them.
Right. So these warriors demanded that Fionn do something to save Diarmuid. When you demand that something happen, you are firmly stating that something should happen. So you could be in a store, for instance, and you bought a product that's faulty, that has some problems with it, and the sales clerk says, I'm sorry, all sales are final. And you can say something like, I demand to see your manager, or I demand a refund.
Okay, let's move on now to the third part of our lesson for today. We'll listen to it first, and then we'll come back to talk about it.
It was well known that water drunk directly from Fionn's hands had the power to heal injuries, and so the men poured water into Fionn's cupped hands and sent him to the dying man. When Fionn saw Diarmuid, however, all he could think of was his betrayal, and so Fionn let the water run out between his fingers. The men threatened Fionn with violence if he didn't try to save Diarmuid again, but by then it was too late. Diarmuid took his last breath in the sobbing Gronya's arms.
So in the last part, we saw that Diarmuid was at the point of dying because he had been attacked by a wild boar. And the men, Fionn's men, were asking Fionn to save Diarmuid. So it was well known that the water drunk directly from Fionn's hands had the power to heal injuries. And so the men poured water into Fionn's cupped hands and sent him to the dying man.
Right, so we've got Diarmuid. He was injured by a wild boar, and the men said, hey, Fionn, you've got to help save him. So Fionn's got some magic power here that everyone knows about. So it was well known that if someone drank water directly from Fionn's hands, well, that would have the power to heal injuries. So the men, as a result, poured the water into Fionn's cupped hands. Sometimes, of course, when you wash your face and you want to splash water on your face, you will cup your hands. You'll join your hands together to form kind of like a bowl, and then you can scoop up some water and splash it in your face to clean your face after you've shaved or whatever. And so he's got his hands cupped together, and they poured water into his cupped hands, and then they sent him to the dying man. So here you go, Fionn. We want you to save him with that water that is in your cupped hands. It's like magic water that Catholics kind of spray on themselves when they enter a church.
But when Fionn saw Diarmuid, however, all he could think of was his betrayal, and so Fionn let the water run out between his fingers. So Fionn was about to give the water to Diarmuid. He was about to agree to save his dear friend, but then when he actually saw Diarmuid, all he could think about was the time when Diarmuid ran away with the woman that he was supposed to marry. So all he could think about was his betrayal, and after that, Fionn decided to let the water run out between his fingers. So his hands were cupped and the water was in his hands, but he let his fingers part and the water leaked out of his hands.
Oh, that's terrible. It wasn't really Diarmuid's fault, but he's now unconscious after being attacked by that wild boar, and he has no chance to explain that he only ran off with Gronya because she cast a spell on him. The men, of course, in the band of warriors were very angry, and the men threatened Fionn with violence if he didn't try to save Diarmuid again. But by then, it was too late. Diarmuid took his last breath in the sobbing Gronya's arms. If you're sobbing, you're crying like that because something sad has happened. And Gronya, of course, is upset that her handsome man has passed away, and Fionn's still angry too. So my goodness, it seems like this story doesn't have a happy ending.
Indeed, it's a tragedy. It's a very unhappy ending because Diarmuid is dead. Gronje is sad because her beloved is dead. And Fionn has lost an old friend and is now being blamed by his men for not having saved Diarmuid.
Right, so who's at fault here? You'll have to discuss that yourselves. That brings us to the end of our lesson for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始写到，战士们醒来的时候啊，芬恩勃然大怒，于是就率领他的手下去追捕这一对男女。那文中是用到名词 pursuit 来表达追赶、追捕，那它是来自动词 pursue P-U-R-S-U-E。 那我们来学习它的字首字根。首先 S-E-C-U 或是 S-E-Q-U 或是 S-U-E 这一类字根呢，表示紧跟或者是跟随，也就是 follow 的意思。像电影啊、书籍、戏剧等等的续集，我们叫做 sequel S-E-Q-U-E-L。 那就可以看出它字根的语义了嘛。好，那么在 pursue 这个字当中，它的字首 P-U-R 是源自于 pro P-R-O 向前，或者是在什么什么之前。那么字根 S-U-E 表示跟随，同学们可以想象目标就在前方，一直跟随着目标向前迈进。那这样的方式也许可以联想到 pursue 它有追求啊、追寻的意思。我们顺便补充两个有这一类字根的单字。第一个是 consequent C-O-N-S-E-Q-U-E-N-T， 那它的字首 C-O-N 表示共同或是一起，那字根 S-E-Q-U 表示跟随， E-N-T 是形容词字尾。好，那跟着一起来，跟随着一起来，应该很容易联想到 consequent 它是形容随之而来的，随之发生的。第二个补充的是 persecution P-E-R-S-E-C-U-T-I-O-N。 好，那它的字首 P-E-R 表示彻底，字根 S-E-C-U 是指跟随，那么 T-I-O-N 是名词字尾。当某个人他一直如影随形啊，跟在你后面跟得好彻底啊，是不是会让人觉得很不舒服、很困扰呢？用这样的方式，也许可以联想到 persecution 它有迫害或者是困扰的意思，像 religious persecution 就是表达宗教迫害咯。好，读到课文第二部分最后一句，他说芬恩的手下……要求芬恩做点什么事来救他。好，句中的动词 demanded 它是过去式，可是我们看到后方的 that 子句却用了 Fionn do something。 这可不是写错哦。我们这边就来学习相关用法。那英文里面呢，有一些动词它之后是可以接 that 子句，那注意这个结构是 that 主词加上 should 加上原形动词，或者是 that 主词加上原形动词。好，那这一类的动词呢，大致上可以分4种。第一个是表达要求或请求，像是 require、request、ask。那么第二个是表达建议，像是 suggest、propose、advise、recommend。那么第三种是坚持啊，或者是表达坚决要求，像是 insist。然后还有第4种是表达命令，像 order 或是 command。我们看2个例句。His mom insisted that he go see a doctor。 他妈妈坚决要求他去看医生。或是 The hotel staff suggested that we take a taxi to the harbor。 饭店工作人员建议我们搭计程车到港口。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Furious. The man became furious when the store refused to refund his money. Pursuit. The dog tripped and tumbled as it ran in pursuit of the rabbit. Viciously. The careless tourist was kicked viciously by the kangaroo. Demand. The cruel king demanded complete obedience from his people. Sob. Jennifer suddenly started sobbing at the memory of the lost kitten.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, Do you see Gronya as a hero or villain in this story? Why?
Gronya seems like a hero to me. I admire her for taking her own life into her hands, for taking charge of her own life. It's really too bad that men are always blaming women for their own weaknesses.
Indeed. Well, Gronya seems like a villain to me. I thought it was wrong when she decided to cast that magic spell on Diarmuid. She should have just waited and explained things to Fionn. Sorry, I know I'm supposed to marry you, but hey, I didn't get to see you before the engagement fee, so, maybe we can be friends later on. So yeah, she should have handled it like an adult instead of relying on magic and drugs. Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed reading along with us. I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.